it is crazy all the work that goes into doing something like this. But I think once we go through the learning curves in the beginning, it's going to be like so fulfilling and so fun, and just a great way to connect with myself and do something for myself and show up for myself like consistently, which is one of my big goals for this year is consistency. And my launch date was supposed to be tomorrow, which hopefully I can say is today, but I don't know if I'm gonna make the date. So I was feeling bad. I was like, did I already fail at this goal that I had about this? And I realized that like it's kind of ridiculous to immediately like think that I failed because I didn't show up for the first date, because there's so much more work like in the beginning of doing something like this that it makes sense that you're gonna fail a lot more in the beginning. So I don't consider this a failure. It's just a learning opportunity. And yeah, if I get this video uploaded, I'm gonna be so proud of us. And yeah, I'm just very thankful for my husband, because again, if he wasn't involved, I would not even be doing this right now. So very thankful. So today we're going to be talking about social media and like virtual relationships. And I wanted to go all the way back to MySpace days. I feel like MySpace was like the first big social media platform. And of course, like millennials are definitely the ones that probably were on it the most. And I feel like when you think about it, like MySpace really set up millennials to be like the tech savvy generation. And I feel like, yeah, that's pretty obvious, but I don't feel like we've given MySpace the credit it deserves, because I learned like HTML coding, and I know that I wasn't the only one. I feel like several women that I've talked to about MySpace are like, yeah, I learned how to code. And yeah, we all essentially had like our own websites. I feel like it taught us so many skills that have translated for a lot of us throughout our lives. And like, I know for me, it was part of my interest in doing like website design and content creation. It helped me figure out new music artists. I feel like MySpace, I don't know if like the main purpose was to get music out there, but I feel like it really was the jumpstart to like putting yourself out there online to get noticed. I know that like YouTube also was for that, but I feel like it was a little bit more leaning towards like comedy and like how-to videos at the time, but I could be remembering that wrong. For me, I remember YouTube in the beginning be like a lot about the funny videos, like the unicorn and the shoes video, the muffins video, like things like that. So, and if you know what I'm talking about, you're definitely a millennial. And speaking of music artists on MySpace, I don't know if this is just like me and my friends, but I feel like it gave a lot of preteens access to like local musicians or even like famous musicians. It gave us an access that we did not have before. And I talked to like several local musicians at the time when I'm pretty sure I had to have been like, 14 or something like that. So it's so creepy looking back on those things, but I know it wasn't just me. Like it was like a common thing. And thankfully I didn't hear about anybody having an issue with that, but it was definitely like really creepy. Another thing with like music artists and like meeting them online is something that I loved to do on MySpace was those pictures where you write like your name or the person's name on your hand, like to prove that you're real and that you're not a catfish. And I do feel like the people that were like in the MySpace era are just like not only more tech savvy, but like the social dynamics on social media, like you know how to tell if somebody's not who they say they are and things like that. I don't know of ever being catfished. I actually, like, this is weird to admit, but I've like met several people in person that I met online, and all of them were who they said they were. Thank goodness. But yeah, I just feel like people who were online at that time, I feel like we just, I don't know, we're able to kind of like tell those things a lot better. I wonder if you guys feel the same way about that. A lot of people talk about the top 8 when it comes to MySpace. It wasn't really that big of a deal in my opinion. Like, I don't remember ever really like having drama about the top 8. I never wrote about it in my journal, and I wrote about like a lot of random things in my journal. So I don't feel like it ever became a thing, but I do remember that feeling of being your crush's number one. And I got to tell you, I do miss that feeling. It's fantastic. But I feel like one thing I did do a lot with the top 8 is like, I feel like I would probably bring it up a lot. Like if I was talking to a boy enough, I probably was like, why am I not on your top 8? Like I could totally see that being something that I probably did all the time. And I love that kind of thing. I love putting people on the spot. Any way that I can make people admit their admiration for me, like I'm going to go there. All right, moving on to like OG Instagram and OG Facebook. I loved OG Instagram, especially above like Facebook. Like when people were moving from MySpace to Facebook, I was legitimately upset. I was like trying to start petitions for everybody to go back and for all the cool people to be on MySpace still, because I was just like, Facebook is so boring. It's like literally 2 colors. I liked the aspect of OG Facebook where it was like commonplace to have statuses that were like this post and I'll tell you my favorite thing about you. Like again, any excuse for somebody to give me a love letter, I'm going to sign right up. So I was posting those statuses all the time. Now that they have those notes on Instagram, like, you know, your girl's jumping on that. I'm like, oh, good. Come talk to me. Okay. You know where to find me, and I'm going to make sure that you see me in everywhere that you're looking. So, whenever you're ready, I'm there. I love distant affection. I don't want to touch anybody. Like, I'm not comfortable with physical touch, but I will, you know, send words back and forth to you all day long. I am there for you 100%. Ask me to go somewhere, I'm not showing up. That's pretty much how that's going. Obviously, OG Instagram was superior because it had no ads in the beginning. It was just solely everyone's pictures. You had a few filters to choose from. Captions were like not a big deal back then. I don't even think people really did them. And it was just great. It was so great. It was just so wholesome. And well, not really. Like people were posting party pictures, right? But it was wholesome in the way that like it was back to users having creativity and showing their life. And I love that. I love documenting your life and looking back on it and sharing it. I eat that shit up. I feel like on the older platforms and the OG Instagram and Facebook, it was more common for the people who were popular online to not be popular in real life. And unfortunately, with like the growth of social media, I feel like that really has changed. I think TikTok is kind of bringing that vibe back a little bit. But I definitely think that like, you know, as soon as celebrities and businesses caught on to like the money making machine that social media is, like they jumped on it so hard and so fast that it really has changed like just the whole experience of social media and how much it affects our lives. It's helped in some ways, and equally as the bad ways, I feel like. All right, so I'm going to go over the polls that I had on my Instagram All the Rage with page, and I'm probably just going to go over like the top answers instead of going over every single percentage. That would get kind of boring. But the first question was your favorite social media era, and you guys chose OG Instagram at 53%. That was not surprising for me at all. I feel like the OG Instagram experience was definitely the most like universal because everybody obviously has a life and can take pictures, and yeah, it's very, you know, easy to be a part of and interact with each other, and so I definitely agree it was a great platform, and still is. I'm still a fan of it, but It's definitely not the same now, that's for sure. Most of you guys are in communication with your friendships through texting, audio, and video, and that was 44% of you. That, again, was not surprising to me. I feel like not only because, well, anyone that's watching is probably a millennial, I'm going to assume. But, since we did grow up with social media the way that we have, I feel like it only makes sense that that's like a comfort zone for us, and that we are so comfortable with it and know how to go about that, as well as like now that we're at the ages that we are now and living in the time that we are now, I think it's a lot more common for families not to even live in the same town or the same state or even the same country, honestly. So it makes sense that a lot of communication is virtually, traffic too. Like, even though some of my family lives in the state, like I barely ever see them, friends as well. Like, traffic is crazy, jobs are crazy, housing is crazy. And with all that combined, like, it's just so much harder to get in person. And same with how do you make new friends? 61% through social media. It's just our comfort zone. I feel like we don't talk enough about how can we really distinguish our online life versus our real life, because if you think about it, like the percentage of time that we're being like present in our lives versus our attention being on social media, like you almost can't differentiate that. Like, it is such a like pivotal part of our lives that I think it's honestly insane that we don't take it more seriously and talk about it more. Like, I hate that we're all like so embarrassed and ashamed of it, because it's only keeping us here. And it's not to say that we shouldn't be on it anymore, but I do feel like it affects our lives so much. So to be so ignorant of that, and to be hush hush about it and not talk about it, I feel like that's a problem in itself, to be honest. And I feel like there is a purpose for it. Like, I feel when something's like really taboo, or people are like ashamed to talk about it, and there's just like a general consensus of feeling about something, that gives me like a red flag. Like, what's the purpose of that? Because you have to think the power of all like the corporations that like run shit, like they run shit. So if there is like a consensus between people, or like a majority feeling, we have to kind of like question that a little bit and be like, okay, is this what they want us to be doing? And if so, like, can we turn it back to being in our advantage and us being the ones to have control? Because the effect that like the marketing has on us on social media, and how saturated the space has become, like we can't even really tell the difference between like celebrities or businesses versus like real people anymore, with the influencer culture and like the rise of entrepreneurship, which like even that's sometimes hard to tell. Like, is it an MLM? Is it your own business? Are you like a branch off of a bigger business? It's just so confusing to tell like what is what anymore. And I feel like that should be more of a concern and something that like we should be talking about, and not being embarrassed to admit that it's affecting our lives. And yeah, wow. Okay, I was talking about the polls, right? So before I go too far off into that, let's keep going, and then maybe we can circle back to that. How do you utilize social media the most? And the number one answer was escapism, which was 39%. That was not too surprising to me, especially based on that last tangent I just had, is I think that, it's become such a reflex to just like always look at our phones at every like minor minute where, I don't know, things don't feel great, or we're waiting for something, or we feel uncomfortable, or whatever it is. So yeah, escapism totally makes sense to me. Also, what was surprising to me was that the number two answer was learning at 33%, so a very close second. again, with that tangent that I just had, I feel like that is a major shift that has happened recently in social media. The fact that the social media space has become so much more like educational leaning ever since all of the businesses became the forefront of social media. Like, I don't think that that's a coincidence. So again, I feel like we need to have a way that we have the power back, and that they're trying to change things based on our wants and needs, versus like they're pretty much telling us like, this is how the space is, and this is how it's changing, and these are the updates we're making. And it's just craziness, to be honest. So the next time you see somebody say, I'm taking a break from social media, I just wanted you to know that I'm all right, don't make fun of them. Because let's be honest, like, we are so much more likely to be judgmental about struggles that people have that we can relate to. Like, it's so much easier to shame that, like, somebody that's like fatter than you or like more unhealthy than you, because all of us can relate to the struggle of like health and diet and everything like that. But it's a lot easier to sympathize with, like, for example, like a drug addict or something, if you're not one, because you've never had that experience. So it's a lot easier for you to be like, oh, that must be so hard, I cannot even imagine. But yeah, if it's somebody that eats cake every day and you go on runs every day, it's very easy to feel like superior to that other person and to judge them and things like that, because you're running every day because you're so scared of getting fat. Has your use of social media changed throughout your stages of life? And the number one answer at 41% was that it changes all the time. I definitely feel that way as well. I think especially for women, that our cycles are really going to affect our relationship with social media, especially if you're like not on birth control. That's how I personally feel about it, just because, like, you know, I know on my ovulation week, I am really flirty, really confident. My skin's clearer. I just feel sexy and I just feel confident. And I'm just on social media, like, giving. And then, you know, my PMS week, like, I might be venting on my stories, or suddenly, like, I might see something that like pisses me off and I get all riled up about that. I just feel like my relationship with social media, depending on my cycle or depending on my mental health, does really change things. There was 2 times that I deleted all of my social media apps, like thinking that I was never gonna get back on again. And it was during really hard times. So I think that that's part of the reason why it really bothers me that people are so judgmental about things like that, of like, oh, woe is me, it's so hard to be off social media, or oh, you need a round of applause because you're getting off of it, and all those things, when, like, if you think about it, like, that's probably not why they're doing it. They're probably doing it because they're going through something. And again, like, maybe I just feel that way because that's what I did. But yeah, the first time I did it was because I needed to quit alcohol, and I don't even remember what my feelings were when I deleted it, but I think I was just ashamed of myself and I just wanted to escape and not be seen. So that was why I did it. And then, yeah, I changed my life around and I was hiking and all these things. And I did find myself like wanting to share that. And when I initially started it, I remember I had like no real toxic type feelings about it. Like, it was genuinely just like, oh, I miss my friends and I want to share these really cool hiking pictures that I took. And as soon as people were commenting on how good I looked, I feel like that really affected me in not the best way. And it's not to say that it didn't make me feel good, because it made me feel great. But I think I instantly got addicted again to having that virtual affection that I get from social media. It was a place where I felt like I had instant access to loving communication, and that is hard to step away from. It still is hard for me to step away from. So I wrote in my notes like my journey of social media, and it's in 3 categories of then, now, and always. And back in the day, it was definitely like a very creative space for me. I mean, again, that's why I loved MySpace so much, was because I did really feel like it was a part of where I learned my love for content creation. I did do like a vlog in high school, which is horrifying to watch back at this age. But at the time, it was so much fun, and it was such a great outlet for me. And I do appreciate it so much. I feel like it was a big reason why I went to college and took the classes that I took, and that I ended up going for the field that I did. So it is pretty cool to look back on social media and see how it, can like give you these skills or give you opportunities to learn certain passions and give yourself a creative space, which I feel like is kind of what I'm trying to recreate at this point, going back on YouTube, is having that corner of the internet for myself where I can do whatever I want and create what I want. Social media gave us the opportunity to seek out like a level of care that we wanted. And that was definitely something for me, as I felt like I could get comforted by friends when I needed them, or even family members. And unfortunately, it gave me really bad habits. Like I just continued on because it was the thing I learned and the thing that worked for me up until, a certain time in my life, like pretty much when I became a mom. And I had to learn that that's actually not very healthy and not great to be doing. I see a lot of other people do it. And so I think that that's why I'm bringing it up, is I wish that there would be some sort of education in school of, like respectful ways to communicate your feelings or express your feelings. And I don't know, I'm not really saying it eloquently because I feel like I'm still kind of learning these things, to be quite honest. But there are so many skills that I wish I learned, that I feel like I could have learned in a social media type space. And I do feel like that is a missed opportunity that could be out there. Maybe it's something, somebody can make. I don't know who I would talk to, but or I could create it myself, I guess. But I don't know. That's an idea. I do wish that there was something like that. I don't know what that would look like or what that would be, but something to teach preteens who are going to want to use social media for things like venting, and things like that, to what would that even be? Social media etiquette school? And maybe there could be like a class in middle school, like health class wasn't all year round. Maybe it could be something like that where kids just learn about emotions. I don't know, that's kind of like off topic, but that's part of it, because you learn how to just sit with your emotions versus like, I learned the behavior of like, as soon as I feel something, I let it out on social media so that somebody else can take it for me and give me back good feelings. Like, oh, you're doing great. Or I would feel the same way, things like that, like instant validation versus like just being able to sit with yourself and feel how you feel and be like, oh man, that sucks. And like 2 minutes go by and you're already starting to feel a bit better. I never learned that. I've voiced that I like affection. I mean, who doesn't? But I voice that a lot. And obviously I get that a lot from the social media space. And that is something that I feel like I've, loved about it this whole time. So it is in the always category. But back then, like my main reason for being online was to flirt with boys, right? And it's funny because as I've gotten older and like I'm married now and everything, it's really turned to like me trying to make very strong connections with women. And it's just so interesting the difference in that, because you know, with guys, especially at like the age that I was when I was doing this, it was like it's so easy. Like, literally talk to a guy and they're gonna love you. And with women, you know, especially like older and as like new moms and things like that, it's so scary because all of us want to be make a mom friend, and all of us want woman friends and things like that. But a lot of women are traumatized and have had bad experiences of, you know, a woman friend that has broken our trust or something like that. So it is rough. And I feel like the rejection that I can feel from other women hurts so much more than if it's like being rejected by a man, because if you're rejected by a man, like usually you can figure out a reason, but when it's from a woman, like I don't know what I did, or if you even don't like me, or like, I don't know. It's so much more confusing. So I guess it's my first admission that I guess guys are a bit right about it's hard to read women. You got me there. That's about it. If any man is even listening to this right now, I kind of doubt it. Unless you love me, then I'll sense the admiration vibes and soak them up. Thank you very much. So social media now, again, with learning, it's hard not to want to educate yourself in such a quick way, right? Because a lot of us, when we get an interest in something, nowadays we instantly want to know everything about it. And once we do, we're over and on to the next. So it's like super addicting to soak up as much information as we can and not remember any of it. Because anytime I try to express something that I've learned on the internet, it always starts with, I think I saw this thing on TikTok. I think I read this article the other day. I saw a psychologist on Instagram, and it's the same thing that I hear from other people too. Nobody remembers who they heard what from, and it's very concerning. Very concerning. There is a psychologist on Instagram that I follow and like. I almost bought one of their books, but I can't stop thinking about how one time I saw them repost a quote by a cult leader. I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if I can trust what this person says, but I think that is such a good example of like, we're just resharing whatever. We're not checking sources. We're not even going to this person's profile to find out that this person's a cult leader, but we're going to listen to what the psychologist says and trust that whatever they're resharing is valid, right? So yeah, it's just really scary. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, well, is it that serious? It definitely can be, but sometimes it's not that serious. Like, for example, I recently got into tarot and like astrology and stuff, and I get nervous that when I post those things, people are going to be like, whoa, Paige is off. Whoa, she's going somewhere weird and twisted. She's going into the dark arts. She's getting into black magic. She's going to start casting spells, and it's already working. I'm in love with her. I know. But sometimes it's just fun to like learn about things you don't know and not take it too seriously. And I think that that's kind of part of the key, at least for me, is like, if we could stop pretending like, oh, I do my own research, I know what I'm talking about, because that's how everybody acts about it. But it's like, did you? Or did you just go on Instagram and follow something and you don't even know this person's like history? I don't know. So for always, I put seeking advice, because it is very convenient to just be like, hey, does anyone know about this? Hit me up. Fantastic. Escapism. I don't know how I feel about escapism. I feel like it's great in some, some ways, bad in others, but I guess that's the same with everything. So it's like, is that even worth talking about? So escapism, expression. I feel like a majority of users don't like create content, but they're just like soaking it up all the time. I'm very fascinated by this. I don't know why, but I'm like, what is keeping you from posting? I'm very curious. So if you are somebody that doesn't post a lot, like at all, like not even any stories or anything like that, please talk to me. I want to know what's going on. Is it because you just don't want to? Or is it because you don't feel like your stuff matters? Because if that's why, it matters. People are going to care. People follow you and they're going to care because everybody wants juice. And everybody wants it. Connection is obviously a big part of every social media platform. And the weird thing about it is when I've asked a lot of people about their usage of social media, it seems like everybody wants to not admit that part of it, that they're seeking connection. Like a lot of people are like, I'm not on here to engage. I'm just here to like click through stories. And it's weird because I get this sense that like people are more embarrassed to admit that they want connection online versus like making it seem like they're just a zombie looking at their phone all day. I find that to be kind of fascinating. I wonder if you guys have any thoughts about that. Like, I feel like in my opinion, it's like two sides of it. It's like either you're looking at people's stuff all the time and kind of just being creepy because you're just like lurking, or you're being a hype person and being engaging and supportive and all those things. Like, I would much rather be on like the desperate side of like rooting you on and talking to you versus just like just staring at your things all the time. I'm the first one popping up and I'm here every time, but I ain't gonna talk to you. What's up with that? What is up with that? You're tapping on my picture, but you're not tapping on the heart. What's up with that? I don't like that. You're on here enough. You got the time. You have the time. I hate that too. They're like, I'm busy. You're on all the time. I know you are. Don't pretend. Don't pretend. I definitely think something that has been a trend for me on social media is like the correlation between like my self-esteem. I definitely like post more of myself on both sides of the coin, really. Like when I'm feeling insecure and like trying to get something out of nowhere, confidence wise. And then when I'm feeling really confident, it's like I just want to show the world, look at me, I'm gorgeous. And you better tell me. Or at least heart it, like that's all I really want. Just let me know you're into it. Affection, no touchy. Oh, I think I asked like, how much does social media influence you? And the number one answer was that it helps you and inspires you, which I was kind of surprised by that. I honestly thought the answer was going to be more along the lines of like, I wish it didn't affect me as much as it did, or it might affect me subconsciously. And I find that answer, if that is true for most people, I'm curious if the reason that's the number one answer is just because of like who my friends are and that's what you guys feel about it, or if that does relate to how most people truly feel. Because again, I feel like one of the number one like topics of conversation when it comes to social media is like how damaging it is, and how much we're being taken advantage of when it comes to marketing. And though I do agree with it, I think it's interesting if the way that people perceive it is that it's helpful and inspiring. Why is there like a general consensus or feeling that it's so horrible? I wonder, is there, like what would be the purpose of that? If that's how they wanted us to feel about it, why would that be? Is that because it puts us in a place where we don't want to admit that it influences us in a negative way because we are so addicted to the experience of social media? I don't know. Something to think about. I personally feel like it might influence me more subconsciously than I probably realize. I was in marketing, so I feel like I have more of knowledge as far as like identifying the ways that they use my information or target me and things like that. And I don't feel like I would ever really be like influenced to buy anything on social media or through an influencer. But I do feel like my attitude is a little bit different. I think because I did it for a job, like I am so much less likely to ever give in to something like that, because I do feel like I'm like, I don't want to be got, essentially. Like I feel like I am pretty stubborn about it. But I've gotten a gift from somebody that they said they got it from Instagram, and it was fabulous. It actually changed my life. It was a self-love journal, which I love a prompted journal. Okay, they're great. Highly recommend. So I'm definitely not saying that it's bad. Oh, in my notes, in Always, I also put down acquaintances, and it kind of made me think about that a little bit more, because I don't think that we talk about acquaintances enough, like the impact that they have on our lives. Because when I was thinking about it, I was like, acquaintances take up most of our following, at least for me, and I'm guessing for most people. I'm not really sure on that though. Obviously, if you're a celebrity, a majority of people are just random people. But they can count in this scenario too, I feel like. It's weird that a lot of us seem to view our basis of what people are like based on our followers, because those are the people that we like instantly have access to. Those are the people that are watching us online every day. So I think that we can project like our insecurities or our thoughts on how people may judge us and things of that nature on to our followers and our acquaintances. So it's weird that we don't like acknowledge the importance of our acquaintances and like who we choose to allow to look at our things and all of that, because even if we're not communicating with these people, like if you're looking at who is looking at your stories every day and things like that, like you're essentially kind of thinking about that person every single day. So even if you don't really know who that person is, like subconsciously, they are a part of your life, like actively in your daily life. If you do post, I do get stuck in my own point of view sometimes. And this is definitely one of those scenarios of this example. But hopefully that resonates with some of you. But I think of that though when people talk about like, you know, people feel this way or people feel that way. Like I have this idea of like, okay, well that's your perception of people, and what is your audience of people? Probably your followers, people you work with, people in your community, things like that. So it's weird that we don't talk about acquaintances more. Speaking of acquaintances, I feel like it should be less awkward to talk to your acquaintances. Like I try once in a while, you know, because it's like, if I see that you're looking at my stuff all the time, I'm going to assume that you kind of like me. So why can't we talk? If you like me, like, what's the problem? But I don't know if that's just like a etiquette thing, but I always feel creepy when I do it. And like, I just like, this just might be a personal problem. I feel like instantly like I'm annoying people by talking to them online if we're not like friends in person. But I want to hear from you guys if you have a response to this. Is like, I'm just curious, like if somebody you don't really know is all of a sudden like kind of talking to you like an acquaintance, like someone you maybe went to high school with or someone you maybe worked with back in the day, I don't know, someone you went to college with, whatever it is, if they all of a sudden like, you know, send you a quick comment about something you posted, or even like share something to you that reminded them of you, like does it creep you out, or does it make you feel like, oh, that's so sweet that they thought of me because I think of them sometimes too? But you just, I don't know, I'm just curious, like what is going on in your mind when that happens? Because I do that sometimes and I'm always wondering, like, do they think I'm weird? Are they excited like that I want to have a conversation and that we're into some of the same things. And I think that's part of it too, is like, if I see an acquaintance that has similar style to me, or, you know, we both do some of the same things, like I naturally just want to be like, oh my God, I do that too, or whatever. And I'm just curious, like, do some people just have, why do people reject me? Why do I feel rejected? Is it happening? I don't know. But I'm just wondering, like, because people are so different, right? Like, is the etiquette for social media vastly different between people? I wonder that because, like, I mean, I think of my husband, and I highly doubt he's ever talking to anyone online versus me. Like on Instagram, I can't imagine, like legit cannot imagine him DMing one of his friends on Instagram. I can't imagine that, but I do it all the time. I probably have like, 30 messages going on at once, and I thrive in that. If my husband was in that situation, I think he would be having an anxiety attack. And maybe I just answered my own question. I think I just answered my own question. I'm probably adding to anxious people's inbox. I am so terribly sorry. You never have to respond to me, by the way, if I ever message you. And I don't know. I think I get worried that people think I'm making fun of them. I feel worried that people, especially online, are taking something I say and taking it as like sarcasm, or they don't understand my humor. I've always had an insecurity of being misunderstood because I've kind of felt like that with my family, just because we're all so different. We all have such different personalities. That is something I would love to talk about at some point too, is like, do you feel that way? Because anytime someone says like, I'm the black sheep of the family, because of how my family is, I'm like, does everybody feel like the black sheep? Like, is that just always how it is? I'm curious about that, especially since I, did start a family, is like, I wonder how my kids are going to feel about that. It's so weird to think about. That's obviously another conversation. Wow, it's almost been an hour. This is amazing. As long as it works. If it doesn't, I'm really going to have a mental breakdown. Yep. I'm probably going to delete my social media accounts after this if it doesn't work. So you won't have to worry about me messaging you or being weird. I went through all my notes. I have no idea how to end this thing right now, but I am so proud that I'm doing this. This is something I have wanted to do for years, and it just feels good to be doing this. I feel like starting off on this topic is perfect because it's kind of why I'm here right now. Like I'm wanting to bring back a creative space for myself, a place where I can build connection with people and I guess build a stronger connection with myself as well. Last year, I was so focused on like self-compassion and connecting with my inner child. And I feel like this year is going to be the next step. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I didn't go into last year with the self-compassion inner child thing in mind. So I'm just excited to find out what it's going to be this year. And I feel like this podcast is probably going to be a really big part of that. I hope you guys will tune in next week. If this comes out tomorrow, I am going to be so shocked because, just because of the night I had last night. So we'll see. But again, if you made it this far, I truly love you. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me and caring. And I will love you forever. All right. That was episode 1. I did it. We did it. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye.